Leading a congregation in the city center of Jerusalem in the end time should be a walk in the park, right? Well, we're going to find out today. Hi, my name is Cody Archer, and I'm so glad that you're joining us for this week's Revive Live. And today I have one of the co-pastors of a congregation called Ahavat Yeshua, which is the love of Jesus in the city center of Jerusalem. His name is Jonathan Moore. Jonathan, thank you so much for being with me today.
A pleasure.
It's not just fun to have you here because you're doing great work as a pastor in a congregation, but you and I are actually close friends.
Yes.
We've had great experience together, doing many different things, and I just appreciate you as a brother in the Lord, as a friend, and also someone a little bit older pouring into me. So thank you for being here today. You're a father of four, and 4 kids in a short amount of space.
Yes.
And busy and active kids.
Shorter than we planned, for sure.
Yeah. And you're married, and we're going to get into a little bit of your story, but before we jump in and do that, I want to just remind our friends around the world that we have a weekly email update that we send out through Revive Israel. It has videos and teachings and updates and many things that are meant to bless you and strengthen you and help, open up a window into what's happening here in Israel, and also biblical teachings from Messianic leaders here. And so we want to encourage you to go to reviveisrael.org to sign up to receive this weekly update. And that will be a free resource to strengthen you and encourage you, and you can pass that around, and it's translated into 14 different languages. And so go ahead and sign up for that. We'd love to send it to you. Also, go ahead and like and share this broadcast. This is going to give you a front row seat into what's happening in the body in the city center of Jerusalem. So I think this is going to be super interesting for you. Well, Jonathan, for those that don't know you, I want us just to start a little bit with who you are. Did you grow up in Jerusalem in the city center? Give us a little of the background. What's your story? How did you come to the Lord as well?
Wow. So I am from Washington, D.C. area originally. Washington, D.C. in America, not in Israel. In case you were wondering where that city is located.
Which is also one of the big capitals of the world.
Yeah. No, it's really actually a great privilege to live in the 2 major world capitals, a governmental capital and a spiritual capital like D.C. and Jerusalem.
Yeah.
But I grew up born and raised in Messianic Judaism, but I'm not Jewish. So that's already makes me an oddball, I know.
Yeah.
And it's been a remarkable journey with me learning my identity as a Gentile, being confident as a Gentile, being called to Israel as a Gentile. And there's some people who sometimes say, you know a lot about Jewish things, you even speak Hebrew and this and that. Why don't you just convert and be a Jew and blah, blah, blah. And so I just say, no. God made me this way. I chose to be here, and that's part of my testimony. So that's just even a brief bit about me.
Yeah.
Born and raised in this movement by 2 Gentiles who came to faith through a Messianic Jew in the late 70s.
Wow, interesting. So you grew up in a Messianic congregation. You never spent time in, let's call it a Gentile church then? Or?
Well, I had a friend who was Catholic, so I went to Mass one time.
Okay, wow, interesting.
Very different.
Yeah. Now let's talk about your wife. She's also very connected to this whole Messianic movement. Give us a little background on that connection.
Well, we grew up knowing each other, and there was never any desire, any connection in that way, just good friends. And then everything changed, which goes to my story of how I came to the land, of course.
So tell us about that.
I'll tell you, it's very funny and interesting. My life direction was, to be in the CIA. That's what I wanted to do. Wanted to be in the CIA my whole life, in the Directorate of Operations. I had a really good connection there, a guy named Paul Grenier, who was leading the Near East Division. So he's basically responsible for all the spy work, not the analyst stuff, the spy work, like running human intelligence assets.
Did you want to be James Bond?
No, I mean, he's British, so, we connect, but, actually when I was there for an interview and getting my processing, and they said, we often show up at the same place at the same time. We're like, oh, you're here, okay. Well, here's what we're doing, here's what you're doing, okay, good. And then they go from there. So there's a little insider information they told me once when I was in Langley. So I was in the process of doing that. I'd already interviewed and everything, and I came to Israel for a conference. I did not come for the tour or for the land or because I love the land. I mean, I was for Israel, pro-Israel, but I just came for a conference that normally took place in America, and they did it one time in Israel.
Okay.
So I'm just here at that conference as a young kid and 21-year-old finishing college, getting my master's degree. And they said, I was overlooking Jerusalem at nighttime, and God spoke to me as clearly as he ever had at that point. And he said, if you want to continue to do what you're doing, I will bless that. Or you can come to Israel once a year. And then he said under his breath, which I didn't know God spoke under his breath at the time. He said, and maybe one day live here.
Wow.
And so I immediately called up that night, called up my contact, and I said, thank you so much for everything you've done for me, but please withdraw me from the processing of getting my clearance and being into the CIA.
Wow, the same day you did that.
Yeah, that night.
That's bold.
So I was a call of God, and I knew that it was a pretty significant decision, and God was offering me something even more exciting than the CIA.
Wow, and this is before your wife Simcha was really central in the picture here.
Right, yeah. At that time, actually, there was a young girl who I was attracted to at this conference, Israeli soldier girl, and she, it was just kind of a sudden thing. The relationship, the feelings, started feeling for this girl pretty strongly, and so I approached her and I told her about this, and this young lady said, I want a dark-haired, dark-eyed, dark-skinned native Israeli. So I said, oh, so the blondish, blue-eyed, extremely white, Gentile American's not exactly what you're looking for, but it's close, right? So that didn't work out so well, but over time, about 3 years of time where those feelings never went away, that young lady, who was actually the same friend that I grew up with, Simcha, Naomi Juster at the time, eventually came around to my way of thinking, and we got married. Now we have 4 kids.
Wow,
so
that's amazing.
I proposed in the same spot she told me no, just to kind of redeem that location.
Yes. So you are the son-in-law of Daniel Juster.
Dan Juster.
I've had with me on Revive Live a number of times.
Yes.
And he's also one of the elders in our congregation, the one that you're pastoring together with Ariel. That's great. Well, hey, just recently, you and I actually went on a 3-day silence and solitude retreat.
Wonderful.
We sat on the beach, we ate steaks, and that's what our flesh wanted to do.
Yes, it was.
But we spent time in silence, in nature. We were praying, fasting, seeking the Lord. Just give me a little bit, what was that like for you? Because I know this is the first time you'd done something like that. What did you gain from that?
It was my first time, and I'm pretty extremely extroverted. So it was a challenge. It was a challenge, but it was great. I really loved it. I plan to do it again. It's amazing. For me, being involved in the congregation and also having a business and also having a lot of different hats I'm wearing at the same time, board member for a pretty successful thing. I think you've had Evan on here with the Hatikva project.
Yes.
So chairman on board for that. So many different things going on at the same time. It's hard to just stop and just get quiet and just really connect with the Lord. So I read through the Song of Solomon for the first time in Hebrew, which still's sinking in what that all means. I probably have to read some Bickle stuff to get the full meaning of it. But it was really great to just slow down, connect with the Lord deeply, and allow him to just kind of calm my soul, feel comfortable, feel confident that what I'm doing right now is the right thing, checking priorities, praying over my kids, praying over the congregation a bit. So that's what I spent. He didn't give me any new direction, so good news. We're still on the same path. But
really good.
It was great.
Yeah, which I would probably say both you and I would highly recommend it to our friends around the world. This is, we're living in a generation with so much bombardment from media, emails, texts, meetings. The pace of life is so fast. And so I want to just encourage you guys watching right now. I really want to encourage you this year, set some time a day, a few days, whatever you can, work out. Go and get some silence and solitude. Sit at Yeshua's feet. Be refreshed. Be renewed. Journal. Hear from him. Connect with him in a fresh way. It really will do a lot for you. Well, let's jump into talking about leading a congregation in Jerusalem. As I said in the beginning, it's a walk in the park, right? There's no challenges. Everything just goes the way you want it to go. But we both know that I'm joking. There's a lot of challenges. What are some of the challenges that you see as a lead pastor or a co-pastor in the congregation to lead a flock of people in Jerusalem?
Right.
And a Hebrew, I also just mentioned, this is a Hebrew-speaking congregation.
Right.
And we don't have translation from the front.
Right. So it's not my native language, obviously, which is another challenge.
Yes.
But I have the joy of being with people like you, which is super awesome. We have just the most amazing team of people. I think we are so blessed. I talk about it with Dan sometimes in Asher, who had this amazing group of people in Beth Messiah back in the day, in the 80s. They had Mike Brown, Dr. Mike Brown, and Eitan and Asher and Paul Wilbur, and I mean just people who end up being an international level of success in their various fields. And they agree with me. The group at Ahavat Yeshua of young leaders and leaders are even better than that. So I think we have great potential to do great things for the kingdom, hopefully. Challenges. The challenges are probably Jerusalem, Jerusalem, and Jerusalem, which is how it always is. You know, the great breakthrough and joy is also your greatest challenge. So Jerusalem being the apple of God's eye is awesome. Just to imagine that you're in the center of apples of God's eye, and you're advancing the kingdom where Yeshua said, I will not come again till this city says, Baruch haba b'shem Adonai, welcome in the name of the Lord. Blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord. So that's a really amazing thing, but it's also a huge challenge.
Yes.
The spiritual warfare over Jerusalem is off the charts. I mean, I was going to be in the CIA. I'm a very healthy, put-together guy, never got sick growing up, and I'm here and I get sick pretty frequently. I would say 3 or 4 times a year I'm battling something off and fighting it off. It just happens, the spiritual warfare, over and over and over again. We've witnessed it when we go out evangelizing once a month on the streets. You know, the responses you get from people, the spiritual warfare is just so intense. And the strongholds, which we talked about actually when we were on our 3 days of silence and solitude, the strongholds here are very intense of religiosity, you know, the religious spirits there, and just a lot of the anti-Christ, if I can say it that way, mentalities. So that would be the biggest challenge, I would say.
The spiritual warfare in Jerusalem, So what other ones do you see?
So the other Jerusalem, is Jerusalem the center of Christendom throughout the whole world. I mean, even the Pope says that's kind of his home, and whether we include him in Christendom or not is a different story. But the issue is every Christian in the world wants to come and visit Jerusalem. And that's amazing again, but it's a huge challenge, because when you think about the major churches that get a lot of visitors in America, like, you know, the Bethels and the Gateways and, I don't know, IHOP and things like that, they get a lot of people coming and visiting them. They're a mega church already. They're 10,000 people or something. So there's already a level of anonymity inside of the church. You don't expect to know everyone's name. But when you're a church, a congregation of 100, 130, 150 people, you do expect to know everyone in the congregation. When you have twice as that many people visiting, it kind of changes the dynamic. So we're a small group to be able to handle the flood of people who want to come visit us. And so that's a big challenge, creating a really strong local community of committed people who commit to one another. And to feel that local community it's actually a huge challenge.
Together with that, I think about the prophecy in Zechariah where it talks about 10 Gentiles will come up and cling to the shawl of a Jewish person, saying the Lord is with you. And in a sense, we feel that, but when you actually do the math, it's more than a 10-to-1 ratio today in the world. It's actually like, I don't even know what the number is. It's probably like tens of thousands of Gentile Christians to every one Messianic believer. He underestimated that 10-to-1 ratio for sure. So we blew that prophecy out of the water. We did, but we'll see. Maybe we'll just bring a bunch of people to faith through evangelism, and then it'll come back to the balance. More of a balance. There we go. I like that plan. Let's have another 3,000 come to faith next Shavuot. Come on. Okay, so you talked about spiritual warfare in Jerusalem being a major challenge. We talked about just the amount of Gentile visitors coming up to Jerusalem on a regular basis and trying to keep the unity and the intimacy in that local community. What other challenges do you see? Well, because it's Jerusalem, and because everyone is looking at Jerusalem, there's also just the practical things of it's extremely expensive to live here. You know, Ariel Blumenthal, the guy I co-pastor with, he has a house in the center of the city, and the only reason why he has that house is because he's had this inheritance he was able to get from his grandfather when he passed, and he was a very successful businessman. So that's the only reason. None of us have the resources to buy houses in Jerusalem, downtown Jerusalem, much less even in the the center of the city where we want to be. We're not even talking about the old city. We're talking about in the new modern Jerusalem, the what they call downtown. So that area, it's just super expensive. So getting a community together who makes minimum wage-ish, or supporting soldiers who, what do they make nowadays? They make $350, $400 a month as a soldier in Israel. Supporting them, and then supporting a congregational community that's trying to do so much on the ties of those people, even as faithful as they are.
it's a huge challenge.
Yeah, just the rent alone is
Rent.
through the roof.
Food even is expensive in Israel because not a lot of the neighbors want to do trade with us, so we have to do everything importing from Europe and other places or locally. Yeah. So there's huge challenges all around with that regard. So, but God is faithful every single month, and we're really, really excited what's going on in the activities that we're able to do through our partners and through our friends.
Yeah, that's really good. Do you have any other challenges you want to mention?
Oh, I have all my own personal challenges, but no, I think those are the three that I would say are the biggest challenges, biggest obstacles. I never felt this way when I was in America. When people said, pray for me, it was like, yeah, good idea, nice. It was almost like a saying than it was a reality. Yeah. For me, it's a reality. I can actually feel it when I wake up in the mornings, whether I have prayer covering and prayer support or I don't. Yeah. I mean, it's my attitude, We used to say between my wife and I, and it's changed a bit over the years, the life cycle in Israel is you wake up frustrated, on edge for no reason. You go through the day, you fight through it, you bless people, you have a positive attitude, demonstrate the fruits of the Spirit, and by the time you go to bed, you're feeling great. Then you wake up in the morning, you're frustrated. It's a daily thing you have to pray through, you have to push through. Yes. This is the center of the world. And I like to tell people, if they want to imagine it, take all the news you hear from CNN to BBC to all those different things and all the things that are saying, Al Jazeera, take that on there, all that hate and vitriol that you see and hear about, and convert that into spiritual energy. Yes. That's the battle we're fighting with all the time.
So intense. Yep. So intense. Well, I don't want us to end on that point. I also want to hear from you some of the positive. What makes you excited? What is happening? Before you do that, though, I really hope, friends, that you're hearing what Jonathan is saying. This is so important, this topic of prayer. The battle in Jerusalem is so intense. The enemy knows it, and so he's putting all this extra effort into really pushing back the believers, trying to block out the faith in Yeshua. And so we want to just recruit you. We want to really encourage you to be standing with the believers in the city of Jerusalem for every congregation. We're not just talking about Ahavat Yeshua, we're talking about every believer, every congregation, every leader needs to be covered in prayer for the gospel to go forth, to be strengthened in our inner man as we serve in that city, and that we'd be overflowing in love and joy and the peace of the Holy Spirit, all the fruits of the Spirit. So we really ask you, please, would you take some time even today, as soon as we're done this interview, would you take a couple minutes to pray and for the peace of Jerusalem, pray for the leaders, for the body of Messiah to be strengthened and renewed. And we so appreciate you doing that. And gather friends, gather your congregations, remember the saints in Jerusalem and in Israel in your prayers. We really ask you to do that. Now, Jonathan, before we close, let's end on something positive. What's the exciting stuff that you see happening right now in our congregation or among Jerusalem?
I would say the things that are most exciting to me are things like there's a pastor's prayer time that's happening monthly that's got about 10 or 15 different leaders involved in it, senior leaders in Jerusalem. And I think that's a big deal to have pastors come together and pray. I think that's how we're going to break down these principalities and we're going to overcome and see big breakthrough.
Just in your estimate, how many congregations is there in Jerusalem right now?
Wow, there's a lot. There's probably 30 or 40, I would say, at least. Some of them are very small. Yeah. But there's at least 10 or 15 that are really quite sizable, 100 plus.
So would you say there's maybe 2,000 plus believers in Jerusalem?
Yes, I would say probably even more than that, because there's a number that don't go to congregations because there's so much ministry happening in Jerusalem. It's not congregationally connected. So I would say probably even 4,000 Christians in Jerusalem.
Which I don't know if I would use the word, there's a lot when I think about America.
Yeah, less than 1%, but it's a lot.
We have a city
For us, I feel like
900,000 plus people in Jerusalem, and we have 2,000 to 3,000 believers.
Yes, exactly.
Woohoo! No, we need breakthrough.
We do.
Yeah, so what else though? You see these pastors that are meeting together, that's definitely positive.
I just feel like there's a lot of other good activities going on. This next coming Shavuot, Pentecost, we're going to have several different communities come together for fasting and prayer and worship for an outpouring of the Holy Spirit. I think it's a really a very significant thing. I really believe that's going to be probably one of the tip of the spear that will break through is through that. And so we're planning for that already. We're trying to get the leaders on board. But we had, I want to say, 8 different communities involved last time, and I think we're going to have more this time. So
awesome.
It was a very powerful time last time. So
really good to hear.
Those are kind of things. And then as a more practical thing, the monthly outreaches that we are doing, I think that's really, really, really important.
Yeah, amen. Now, if someone wanted to connect with Ahavat Yeshua, do we have a website that we can send them to? Or
Yeah.
What if they wanted to visit? What would you say?
If they want to visit, they should definitely email us at info at ahavatyeshua.co.il. So that's spelled Ahavat Yeshua, AHAVATYESHUA.co.il.
Okay.
That's
so
the
that's
place
the website.
to
So that's
email us.
That's where you'll get the email. Okay.
To visit. And then the website is just Ahavat Yeshua, Jerusalem.com.
Okay. Great. So I want to encourage friends. There's also a place on the website that you can give financially towards the work of Ahavat Yeshua as a community.
Through Revive's website.
And also it's through Revive as well.
Yeah, they have that as well.
We at Revive are really trying to help boost and advance this congregation. I'm a part of it as well, and so I'm wearing
Revive.
a couple different hats.
Yes.
But Jonathan, thank you so much for your time today.
My
It's
pleasure.
great to hear from you. And thank you guys also for joining us. I want to encourage you to like and share this broadcast. I know that you have some friends and family who would love to hear our conversation today about what's happening in the city of Jerusalem, the epicenter of the earth, the place where Yeshua is returning to, which we're so excited about. But know that there's lots of more battling to go before that day comes.
Amen.
But we love you guys. Thank you for standing with us. And I will see you next week on Revive Live.